Roald Dahl, British author of Norwegian descent, was born on September 13th, 1916 and passed away on November 23rd, 1990. Throughout his incredible career, he sold over 200 million copies worldwide and created some of the most beloved and successful children's stories of all time. Arguably, his most treasured came into our worlds in 1964, titled Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The idea for an on-screen adaptation began when director Mel Stewart's 10-year-old daughter loved the novel so much she asked her father to make a movie out of it.
Give it to me. Now.
She also wanted Uncle Dave, David Wolper, to produce it. Wolper just so happened to be in talks with the Quaker Oats Company at the time regarding a method to introduce a new candy bar. He managed to persuade them to buy the rights to the book despite having no previous film experience whatsoever. Mel Stewart originally didn't want it to be a musical until he was convinced by producers pointing out the pure success of Mary Poppins and the Wizard of Oz. It was agreed that it would be a musical and that Roald Dahl himself would even have the power to write the screenplay. At the time of production, the Vietnam War was at its peak and the North Vietnamese were often referred to as Charlies. Because of this, studio executives feared that the title would steer audiences away. Thus, it was renamed Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
It's a lot of nonsense.
Slugworth was also a very minor character in the book, but was expanded upon in the movie in order to advance the plot. Joel Grey was the first choice for the role of Willy Wonka, but was considered not physically imposing enough. Ron Moody was then approached, and admittedly, I think he would have been absolutely brilliant, but he turned it down. Roald Dahl himself wanted Spike Milligan, and even had Peter Sellers beg for the part. John Pertwee even rejected the offer to star in Doctor Who, and all 6 members of Monty Python had expressed interest, but they were all thought to have not been big enough names for an international audience. Fred Astaire had shown interest in playing Wonka, but it was never brought to the attention of either Mel Stewart or David Wolper. However, it's a good thing because Stewart claims he wouldn't have been able to see Wonka as a 72-year-old man anyway, and even Michael Crawford was considered. Carry On stars Sidney James and Kenneth Williams also showed interest, and Dudley Moore, Don Lane, and Peter Cook were also considered. Frankie Howard was forced to turn it down also due to conflicting schedules from Up Pompeii and The Chastity Belt. Eventually they held auditions, and as soon as Gene Wilder entered the room, before he even spoke a word, Mel Stewart claimed he didn't even need to see anybody else. He knew that he had found his Wonka. However, Gene Wilder said he would only accept the role if he was granted the very first scene that we actually see him in.
You're always making things difficult.
He sports a fake limp, leading to the applause dying down before doing a flip back to his feet. When asked why, Wilder explained, "So from that moment on, nobody will know if I'm ever telling the truth or not." His acting was so convincing that Julie Dawn Cole, who played Veruca, was actually concerned that he had legitimately hurt his leg, possibly postponing filming. When he flips back up, her reaction was as real as the audience's.
But it's the only way if you want it just right.
Sammy Davis Jr. had expressed interest in playing the Candyman.
Surrender to me now.
Not that one, but was rejected because Mel Stewart felt like a major star playing such a minor role would ruin the reality of the film. Regardless, the Candyman song became a frequent in Davis's show for many years to come. Jean Stapleton was the first choice to play the mother of Mike TV, but she turned it down to star in All in the Family. Ryan Murphy was approached for the role of Mr. Salt, and Jim Backus was also a choice but was considered too recognisable. Mark Lester auditioned for the role of Charlie but got turned down because of his high-pitched singing voice. Yeah, well. The film follows Charlie Bucket, played by Peter Ostrom, a poor little child who lives with his mother and 4 grandparents who are incapable of getting off of their arse and leaving the bed. Sounds like my ex. He hears stories about a wonderful candy maker named Willy Wonka who was forced to shut his chocolate factory down due to spies stealing his ideas. However, as luck would have it, just after Charlie hears this story, Wonka comes out of the woodworks and unleashes a brand new competition to the entire world. He has hidden 5 golden tickets inside Wonka bars across the planet. The winners will be granted a tour of his factory as well as a lifetime supply of chocolate. We meet Augustus Gloop, Veruca Salt, Violet Beauregard, and Mike TV, a kid from Arizona who's addicted to television. And his last name is literally TV. It's really odd because everybody seems to marry somebody with almost the exact same names as themselves.
Grandpa George, Grandma Georgina, Grandma Josephine, Grandpa Joe.
You're going to be very unpopular around here, Henry, if you don't deliver soon.
It breaks my heart, Henrietta.
There's a 5th winner, but it turns out to be fake, and Charlie then finds the final one. And of course, this means that Grandpa Joe has miraculously healed and can now walk, run, sing, and dance.
I've got a golden ticket.
No, Charlie does, you selfish cunt. They all then go on the tour, craziness ensues, kids get picked off one by one like a damn horror movie because of their own incompetence before leaving Charlie. There's a very clever twist at the end which we'll get onto in a minute, but the movie really set the standards for not only musicals but book adaptations and children films in general. This response, however, differed from the author Roald Dahl's initial response. He completely loathed the movie and disowned it completely. Allegedly, Dahl himself failed to meet deadlines, so David Seltzer had to make several rewrites and the majority of the screenplay was all on him. The author claimed he was disappointed because the movie placed way too much emphasis on Willy Wonka and not enough on Charlie. He also continued to remain bitter about Gene Wilder being cast instead of Spike Milligan, and he was also infuriated at some of the script edits. He hated the fizzy lifting drink scene, probably because, although it does appear in the book, Charlie never broke the rules and drank them, and was fuming about Slugworth becoming a main character just so they could have a villain. It's fitting because Gene Wilder himself felt the same way about the Tim Burton version and refused to watch it for years. Once he finally did, he called it a disgrace. Roald Dahl was so angry with the picture that he refused the studio to make the second movie. The screenwriter had an idea for a completely original sequel, but copyright issues made it impossible. Dahl apparently refused to ever watch the entire movie. He stayed at a hotel once and claimed that he switched it on by accident on the television before switching over as soon as he realised what he was actually watching. However, in the behind the scenes footage on the DVD, there's photographic proof of a very happy looking Roald Dahl visiting the set and even attending the movie's premiere. There were things put in that weren't from the book, and certain things were dropped just for storytelling purposes and what was felt needed at the time. Without the subplot of Slugworth or the twist at the end, I just feel like the movie would have been missing something. Gene Wilder brought to life one of the most magical and mysterious characters of many of our childhood. I doubt anyone could have performed this role better than him. During the famous boat scene, he was the only one who knew what was going to happen. The actors' reactions are genuine fear, especially Denise Nickerson who played Violet. They genuinely thought that Wilder had actually gone insane from being in the tunnel for so long. His acting was that good. This also possessed the only song lyric from the book. Everything else was written specifically for the movie. Wilder claimed that he had loads of fun working with the child actors, most of which had genuine reactions. For instance, when they first entered the chocolate room, it really was their first glimpse, so their excitement is real. Although he claimed Paris Amen, who played Mike TV, was a handful. Denise Nickerson, who played Violet, and Julie Dawn Cole, Veruca, both had a crush on Peter Ostrom, who played Charlie. During filming, the girls would actually alternate days which they could spend time with him. Ha! Gay! I must admit, this movie really shows that minor characters can sure as hell have a huge impact. Charlie's teacher, played by David Batley, is only in 2 scenes and he's incredible.
I don't know, sir.
Of course you don't know. You don't know because only I know. If you knew and I didn't know, then you'd be teaching me instead of me teaching you. And for a student to teach his teacher, it's presumptuous and rude.
If not for Wilder, he would have stolen the show. One thing I much prefer in the original is that the characters are far more interesting. The remake focused too much on giving Wonka a... The comedy is brilliant, and they treat the Wonka search like it's life or death. It's so dramatic, it's hilarious. The kids were also bland and boring and had very little to them. This version, although minor stereotypes, they're a thrill to watch and actually had substance to them. Charlie is a very likeable character, and you really want him to succeed and be able to support his family. You believe in him, and it's a really beautiful message that you can achieve anything if you dream hard enough. Except for when you dream for YouTube subscribers.
It's your husband's life or your case of Wonka bars.
How long will it give me to think it over?
The pacing is excellent. Twice we see Charlie open a ticket to find nothing, so you expect him to find it the second time around, and it's perfect storytelling. The songs pop up when they're needed, and they don't live out their welcome. They're very well done, very well written, very well sung, and very, very memorable. The Oompa Loompas are timeless and really a highlight, with great messages for kids and catchy songs for everyone to sing along with. However, the actors who played the Oompa Loompas were actually known for hard partying, often taking limousines together to the club. At the end, Wonka refuses the lifetime supply of chocolate because of their misbehaving antics earlier before Grandpa Joe snaps at him. Wonka fights back and loses his shit. The actors of Grandpa Joe and Charlie were not informed of this beforehand. Their reactions are genuine. Wilder and Peter Ostrom had become really good friends during filming, so Gene really wanted to tell him beforehand to let him know that he was just acting, but the director forbade it to maintain his real reaction. However, it was all a test. When everyone won their ticket, Slugworth sends them in to steal his everlasting gobstopper. After Wonka's outburst, Grandpa Joe promises to give it to him, but Charlie refuses and gives it back. It turns out it was all a setup, and Wonka gives Charlie the entire factory as a reward to continue after he's gone. He's such an endearing character, and I really can't understand how Depp perceived it any better, making him mean to children, which wasn't in the book. Willy Wonka was only mean when the kids were little shitbags in an envelope sent by Adam Sandler. Wilder had a certain charm to him. He was so enchanting, and he had so many memorable lines and comedy value.
Don't just stand there, do something!
Help. Police. Murder.
What is this, Wonka? Some kind of fun house?
Why, having fun?
Okay, so here, Charlie pretends that he's won the ticket to excite his family.
I got it!
Where?
told you, didn't I?
Yeah, I would have punched the little shit upside the fucking head. Okay, so Slugworth seems to just constantly show up whenever a kid wins a ticket and just so happens to know exactly where they are. I always found this weird, but apparently a subplot that was dropped from the film was that Wonka set the entire thing up so he'd know exactly where each ticket would be. Despite this concept being cut, it's viable, especially with hints such as his boat towards the end of the film not having nearly enough seats for all of the kids, so he knew a bunch of them would fuck up. It also explains...
Stop! It says the 1st of October, that's tomorrow.
What are the fucking odds? It also probably explains how every single kid selected has some kind of connection with every single room they just happen to see on the tour. I do have to agree with Roald Dahl to an extent about one thing. It seems very out of character that Charlie and Grandpa Joe ridicule Violet for not listening to Willy Wonka.
Why doesn't she listen to Mr. Wonka?
Because, Charlie, she's a nitwit.
But moments later, just the very next scene, they don't listen to him and drink the fizzy lifting drinks. It was put in to add more suspense and drama, but it makes no sense from a character's perspective other than to lead into Wonka's outburst later. It is completely nonsensical and things that these characters just would never have done. But like I say, this was a magical gem when I was a child, and it still holds up to this day as one of my all-time favourites and a classic masterpiece. Thank you, Gene Wilder, and rest in peace.